this series I decided not to do with the ubiquitous Tiny from Hawaii singing Over the Rainbow. I just want to talk through the slides, so I hope I don't bore you all to death, and I'll go through them as fast as I can. This is my favorite picture of Thor. I used it in the program as well, and it was taken by Don Lloyd, as he informed me a while back, and I just love this picture of him. Well, there are several favorite pictures of him, but I'll get started here. I can do it from just here, can't I? And just tell me if it's not seen on the screen. The first section here is Denmark, is Thors coming to Canada from Denmark, and a little bit about Canada at the beginning. This is his father, and his father was a beekeeper, which is one of the reasons why Thor very badly wanted to keep bees when he came. He did for several years keep bees. And his mother, a very industrious person as well, she recreated new clothes from old clothes for people. And this is Thor just about the time when he would be doing the circuses. And I circled it so you wouldn't have to spend a lot of time finding him. But you can tell it's him, right? And another picture of the four siblings from back then. Ingrid was extremely beautiful. She had the most gorgeous eyes that she's passed on to several of the generations coming on. And this is Thor and Lise. Now you might have a hard time understanding or believing that is Thor, but that is Thor. And when they were married, I gather. And this is Kaya and Cain. Kaya, a little bit older, when they were little toddlers, and you could place that picture back in the first picture. Thor there. And this is Thor's family. I gather on a vacation. Lise and Kaya, I presume at this point maybe there was no Cain yet. There was no Cain yet. And then Thor was always an outdoors person. Part of what he did when he as a young man, he was upholstered to apprenticed to an upholsterer, and one of his jobs was to card horsehair in a little room. You can imagine how the horsehair would break off, and one of the reasons he always had problems with his lungs was because he initially had all that horsehair. Smoking for many years didn't help at all. And I believe Sven is here. Sven is right here. This is Sven in the picture with Thor, with some big old crabs. And this is Thor in his house in Burnaby before, well, I suppose while he was percolating the gallery. Okay, then we come to the transformation. This is one of the signs that I'm assuming that Michael made these signs. Did you make these signs, Michael? Where are you, Michael? Somewhere back there.
Yes.
And of course the ubiquitous. And this is what he turned into. Here. Full of charisma and spirit. And I think, you don't wonder why he could get people to do stuff. And this is the gypsy wagon that Christine and Thor lived in when the gallery was being built. They also had a bird in a cage there. I went through thousands and thousands and thousands of pictures to pare this down to a whole bunch of packets of pictures, to pare it down to this selection of pictures. So, there's lots of it. And here it is with his crew in the gypsy wagon, handing out coffee, it looks like. And this is Thor, and if you have had a chance to look at the costume at the back, the red costume, this is Thor in that red costume, with his long hair and looking very much like JC. And this is Christine. I do not know who this is, but this is Christine, who was his partner for the first 10 years of the gallery, and she was responsible for many things, including the Bragandell Art Gallery Society getting going. And anywhere where there's Thor, there's ice cream. And this is getting materials. And this is the WCB as it was at the But for those of you who wonder if the building is a strong building, this was the beginning of it. These gigantic pillars on the foundation, or on their foundations, and that was quite miraculous that that could happen at all from someone who really had never built anything. Here's the floor rafters. And I used to worry about where the gas station was, but I now know for sure that there was a cafe and then a gas station. And then the ribs started going up, slowly. So we're contemplating the next steps. Eventually getting to the roofing, which they made all the shingles for. And I put this picture on here because the building is there, but what a mess. Lots to clean up, and you know, how much it has changed is amazing. And some days I suppose it was just Thor with a wheelbarrow. Nobody else was around. Wouldn't always be around. And then the gallery opens, but it's just that main building, just the main building of the hall. After that, they built the building at this end, which is now my living space, and then eventually connected the two with the kitchen as we know it, which is going to get a beautiful renovation due to those lovely people over there. And I put in a few pictures at the end here. This is Kelvin, and I don't know who the guy is in the middle. Do you, Kelvin? No. But they apparently did a lot of that out there in the woods. And for those of you who have been regaled with Thor's stories of crossing from Hawaii, he really did. Because here he is on the boat, on the crossing from Hawaii. And for those of you who were regaled about a picture of having a pet pig, there's the pet pig. So this is Thor's family. This is some of Thor's family. Some of them, there are more of them now, and there are fewer on one end and more of them on the other. In Denmark, all gathered for a family gathering. And every time we went to Denmark, the family, both my family and his family, would put on a big party, basically. So, they're lovely. And Thor's brother, Bent, who was here for quite a while from time to time, and was a lovely guy. He died very close to when Thor died. And this is his son, Oyvind, who stayed with us for some time, and some of you might remember Freya and Bracky. And that was me. I really did look at young. And I hummed and hawed about putting this picture in because it might be taken badly, but this is actually Kaya and Thor in the back of an extremely well-used Volkswagen Beetle. So the kids did come and visit Thor. They went back to Denmark, and they were basically brought up by Lisa's sister with her kids, and but they did come over and visit Thor various times. So this is Kaya, a little bit older again. And this is when we visited Kaya in Denmark. And Kane came a few times too, and fishing was really big in their lives. In Thors' life especially, there's a little section on that later. And there you see again, I like to call this one the clone one removed, and the other one where he is the clone two removed. And that's Kane and Tor and Louis off on a train ride when we still had the trains going on our way. I love this picture because the picture of Louis as a little toddler, everything in this picture is echoed. The way the foot is back, the way the hands are back, the way the hair is just total sameness. And then older, same thing again. And Louis actually has this beautiful picture of him as a little guy tattooed on the back of his calf. You can ask him to see it later. But there isn't just Louis, there's also Vincent. Vincent is Louis' half-brother. But you can see they're all Froslevs, just the same. And this is the latest addition to the family. This is Elva, which is Louis' little girl. She is adorable. In 1982, I came along, a little bit like was explained there. We actually came to a Baldy concert, and that was the time when he came out and shocked me by asking for my phone number. And I went home and I said to my mom, Mom, you never, well, that was actually later. He came out to Emily Carr where I was taking the course, and he asked me out for dinner. And I went home to my mom and I said, Mom, you'll never guess who asked me out for dinner. He came out to Emily Carr and asked me out to dinner. You know, the guy from the back Brackendale Art Gallery? And she said, that's wonderful, dear. And later she said to me, what she really said was, that's wonderful, dear. This is Tor with the dummy. We like to call that one the dummy. That I made while I was teaching. And I was teaching kids to make a stocking doll, and it started to look like Tor. So and my parents from the very beginning, despite the gulp, loved Tor. They loved everything about it, and they never could understand why they didn't say to me, for God's sake, run for your life. Because the collections officer at the North Shore Credit Union, when I went to guarantee his mortgage, leaned over the table to me, looked me straight in the eye and said, you don't want to do that. But I was 32 and, I did it anyway. So,
Thank you for
that was when interest rates were in the double digits. Anyway, Mom and Dad loved Tor. They did. And here is Tor with my brother-in-law Richard and my brother-in-law Frank. Looking very young and probably at Christmas. And my sisters Ricky and Trudy at Canada Day, I believe that would be. Is it? After one, okay. And Tor with Nina. Nina came up for several years and ran. She organized and ran basically the Eagle Count and did a beautiful job of it. She did. With the help of the two younger nieces as well, Amy and Anna. And I put this in because Tor has the bragging points for putting two women through master's degrees, because he saw Christine through hers in psychology and he saw me through mine in education. And he always thought that every occasion required red roses. So you get red roses. This is Anna and Lindy and Richard on Lasqueti, where they have a property. I don't know quite what they're doing, but this was such an adorable picture of them, I had to put it in.
Would we go shucking oysters?
Probably shucking oysters.
Oyster club.
Yeah. And this was Lindy's wedding. One of the last times that Tora really got dressed up to go out. With his beautiful niece, and Anna, other beautiful niece, and Nina, other beautiful niece. And then we went to a section called Building, Building, Building. This is what the gallery pretty much looked like when I arrived. There was no studio here. There was a big sign there. The place where I am now had big drafty windows in from this side, and big drafty doors in from the other side. Nothing like it is now. And this isn't particularly in order, but these first three pictures are Tor doing what Tor does when he has a new building. So here he is standing on the structure that has become the studio. And here he is standing on the new stage. And here he is. And this is also how Workmen's Compensation Board worked on the gallery. As you can see, his safety line is this guy's arm. And he's wearing, at least he's wearing shoes that tie. And not sandals. And this giant beam came from, it's one of the three beams that he got from Ron Banner. Two of them are in the workshop, make the workshop, and actually I guess it was four, because two of them made one of them made the new stage and two of them made the workshop. There he is, doing that. So, one of the things that happens along is that buildings sprout out all over the place. So this place we now call the dojo. This is where Leslie Parrish lives at the moment. But that wasn't enough for Tor. He had to build something on top of it. And his trick was that if he painted it green, the building inspector couldn't see it. And then we have the chapel, and the chapel was dedicated by Joan Montagnes, who was a Katimavik with us and then a waitress for a while, and then she went off and studied lichen in the Arctic with a gun on her back, and then she became a Unitarian minister. So she happened to be available to come and do a dedication of the chapel. And this is Toby Nielsen. He's working on the eagle rescue area. This was a pool that Tor made that really, none of the birds that were ever in there really cared much about it. But we had to have this facility so that Tor could do what he really wanted to do, which was rescue birds. So here he is with an owl that somebody brought or he picked up somewhere. And one of the things we did is we went down to Bainbridge Island and took a course in wildlife rescue and did things like gavage, hummingbirds, and other. Yes. Well, I don't think I ever tried that. Gavage is when you feed it with a tube, but they were dead birds. That they had, roadkill birds that were frozen. And what I learned was that I really didn't want to do this. And Tor still wanted to do it. And Carl and Sheila have been absolutely awesome in bringing birds down to facilities in Vancouver to actually really get help that we couldn't. These are the beams, what ended up as the ribs for the new stage. And this picture here you see the model for the new stage. And it was actually genius, and I think that was Michael Malcolm too, to turn those beams in that direction to make the stage. Because you could have done them the ordinary, boring way, but that's not what they did. And here it is for real before the sides were put on. The unicorn, by the way, was built by Jim Cummins, who is still known as Eye Brain Eater, and if you want to pick up some of his work, you can go to the Empire of Dirt on Cleveland Avenue, because they carry his work. And this is the studio being built. And this is Jim doing what he does best, moving dirt. And this is the sunroom. So another sprout out here. Here's the building of the workshop, and you can see these huge beams that he's scored from Ron Banner. Oh, then we go to this one. This is me standing in a drawn-out foundation for the tower, and Thor has written on the bottom of it, over my dead body. So I'm here, therefore I'm not underneath the tower. And this is Henry Yorkman, who designed the tower, and Johannes and Chris, who helped build it, even though I spray painted on the wall nearby. We can't afford this, and we don't need it, so don't help him. Which everyone ignored. And there's the foundation. And I don't have a picture, but I have a picture there was a picture of all the people standing around here, including the mayor, what was his name? Addie? Ian Sutherland, standing there with the scissors ready to cut the ribbon, and he turns to Thor and he says, "You do have a permit for this, don't you?" But nevertheless, there's the tower. So a little bit about Thor not building. You might have a hard time figuring out why this picture is in here, because who are these people? Well, the one with the pipe in his mouth is Thor. Yeah.
Want to repeat that?
The one with the pipe in his mouth is Thor. And he was one of the founding members of the totem fly fishers. And this is Thor with a big fish and his friend Klaus. I don't know what Klaus is doing. And I just put this in because this is his fly fishing gear that we carried all over the place on holidays, although it rarely came out, but sometimes it did. Here he is having a lovely time. He was actually a very accomplished fly fisherman, although that did not mean you got to eat fish a lot. There he is again. And we did do some nice holidays. We went to Hawaii, we went to Mexico. This is Thor with an Alaskan Christmas tree. If you want to see what that is. And this is Thor with a sign in Denmark. There are actually lots of places called Froslev in Denmark, but this was the particular correct one. And this is actually in Australia. And there was a place called Brackendale Road, and there was a little tiny place called Brackendale, which was really a sheep marshalling corral and a tiny church, but we had to drive 26 miles there and back to the road to see it. And I did trick him into doing this, actually. Afterwards he said, "You tricked me, it was just as far back as it was there." And if you wonder what Santa does in the summer, this is what he does. And special occasions, I think this was Thor's 60th birthday. And it was before internet or anything else, and we managed to keep it a secret from him until he stepped in the door, and Patty took this picture. Yeah. And when I first came to the gallery, the very first Christmas, we had a Christmas dinner, and I did the traditional pork and goose dinner for, I think, maybe 16 people, which turned into, as some of you know, year after year, 100 people plus Christmas Eve dinner. Yeah. And here is some of those participants. Obviously having a good time. And of course the eagle count was very big for Tor. And a big source of pride and enjoyment. We had the occasional, actually the reason I'm putting this in here is because this is such a perfect costume. He got the cape somewhere. This is one of my mom's meerschaum pipes that she collected. And then I took 2 of the Republic of Brackendale hats, put them this way for his hat. And at one point, some lovely people, Patty and Glenn, got together and nominated Tor for a Community Achievement Award, and then came with us to Victoria for him to be awarded it, his beautiful medal. Well, Tor dressed up was always his best pair of coveralls, a tie, and a jacket, and polished his shoes. And then this great honor that we just had recently, which was really fantastic. Fantastic that this was done, and it was done so beautifully. And the guy with blue is the artist. Gosh, I can't remember his name. Kevin Lido. And I don't know the other guy's name.
Alex Phelps.
Alex Phelps, I didn't know that. So, yeah, so Tor got to see that on the way home from the hospital and met the artist, which was really great. Okay, just a little bit more, not too much more. And of course there's the Brackendale bells, which we have, I think we've literally sold thousands of them, bartered, given away, sold, and through many different permutations, and many different people helping with them. Christina, Nick, and Fred, many other people helped with it. I'll get to that one. This is Torian. And I'll just say a little bit about Torian while I'm here. Torian has been with us for 3 years, all the way through, or 3 or more, all the way through COVID and through Tor's illness, and we could not have done it without him. Handyman, he's brought firewood up for Tor for eons. He picked Tor off the floor when we couldn't get him up. Just many, many things. And although many different people have done welding of the bells, this is Richard, my brother-in-law, who has done the last few batches, and I hope he's going to come up and do the last batch. Because there's one batch that's half made, in case you haven't got your bill yet. And then there's the faces, the face wall, which is part honor wall and part fundraising thing, because you could, although we're obviously not doing it anymore, you could get your face on there for $100, or you could get your face on there because you were famous, like Robert Bateman and David, casting and cleaning. And one of the people, well, the person who probably did the most work on this casting wall is Dakota.
Yeah.
Fall Fair, which was one of Tor's great projects. And he and a number of guys, to start with, got the idea to put the Fall Fair on, and they used to meet together. I used to call them the Fossils Institute. The Brackendale Farmers Institute. That's not my things in Tor at the park. And then these last few are just because.
Capital.
I don't know where this was, or why, actually. That's how he came over. That's how he came over. And this is a little painting that's painted by Tonya Marks Bainey. And I have it hanging on my wall at home, and I like to say that it's Thors JC, and no wonder everybody followed him. And of course, there are lots and lots and lots of publications, stories in newspapers all over the world, Germany, Denmark, about Thor and the gallery and the eagles. This is just one of them in his domain. And another reminder that he did run for council, looking very serious. And the story is told that Brennan once said hello to him. He said, "Hello, Alderman Hippie." And Thor said, "Hello, Alderman Redneck." And Thor with his favorite sidekick. This little laptop snap. Yeah. And one of his favorite things to do was to go swimming in the early morning up at the lake. One of his probably later swims. And his precious coffee machine, which has croaked. And his famous breakfast with the pickled herring and the eggs, and like the pickled herring whether you wanted it or not. And this was taken by Bob Brandt as we set it up. Yeah. Was Thor and me and Patty and Glenn. And then finally, a picture that kind of matches the one that we started out with, Thor in his domain. Oh, and then if you've been paying attention at all to the screen as you've been here, you've seen the pictures that have been running, and they'll be running for the rest of the thing. The first part is, I call it Thor's people, and they're people with Thor. And the second part is Thor's chair, because when Thor was mostly confined to his chair, and he had a chair for people to sit in, he would take pictures of people sitting or standing or whatever. So that will turn as we go. And that's it.